demo today by Sara Dee Broderick, and here it is. Marvelous. I don't know, are we going to have to rent a bigger hall or what? Or stack you in? Someone suggested 3 showings. And for anyone that's missing it, this video, we can then watch at 1 o'clock, so we can watch it again. But anyway, I'm going to let Sara Dee introduce herself, and this is our wonderful Sara Dee from Brookings. Thank you. There are some more chairs here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 separate chairs.
My name is Sara Dee Broderick, and I am an artist and an art instructor. I teach at Southwest Oregon Community College in Brookings. I teach drawing and painting, and I also have a drop-in workshop at the Manly Arts Center. That's on the 1st and the 3rd Friday of the month. For non-members, it costs $13. For members of Pelican Bay Art Association, it costs $12. It's a multimedia class where you can work in whatever media that you want to, whatever content you want to. We have critiques, and we have individual instructions, and we have group instructions. If anybody's interested in that or would like to know about when we're going to meet, just write your name and your email address, and I will remind you of when this is going to be if anybody's interested. I put on my Van Gogh shirt this morning. We get a lot of catalogs in our house, and most of them go to the recycle without even being opened up. But I found this catalog open to this page with this shirt for me to see, and of course the minute I saw it, I had to go buy it. But my husband found it, my husband Tom, and I immediately had to have it. And so I bought this Van Gogh shirt, and I was so proud of it, I had him take my picture, and I emailed it to all my kids. And my youngest daughter said, "Don't buy me a matching one of those. It looks like wrapping paper." Well, it's probably valued at $53 million, and it's in the museum. And Van Gogh was very influenced by Japanese art, which probably came to him as wrapping paper. Probably is wrapping paper. Okay, today we're going to do the figure in watercolor. I want to tell you a little bit about the work on the wall. I work in a lot of different mediums. Most artists work in watercolor or in pastel or in oil, but being a community college teacher in very small communities, I've always had to do it all. So I kind of am a jack of all trades and master of none. But this is a watercolor painting here, and this is, I call this painting Proud Winter. This is an Olympic star, and by the way, I did get permission to paint her. So I have a letter someplace at home that said it was okay for me to paint this picture. The next one you see here, this is all watercolor here. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about how to mix blacks, because you'll see a lot of blacks in that painting. This painting I call At Home We Have Trees and Deer. And sometimes you paint a picture and you may not know what it's about until after you've painted it. What happened in this was my husband had taken a job. We had just built our house in the mountains, and my husband took a job in Huntington Beach, California, and we left for about 18 months for him to do this job, and I went to California State University at Long Beach. And this is a painting that I did there, and it's got the uprooted tree, and it's got the deer, and this is a real mixed media painting because it's watercolor and pastels, and you'll see a lot of erasers. Your eraser is also a drawing tool, so a lot of the things that are erased out. But after this was all finished, I realized that this was a real homesick kind of a painting because I was missing my mountain home and my lake and my mountains and trees and deer. So, but at the time I was doing it, I didn't know what it was about. This next one is a seascape in oil. Can't remember what it's called, Morning Tide or Morning Tide. And I like to paint seascapes in oil. I've tried in watercolor, but I feel like I have more control with the oil, and I like to paint with a knife to get the different textures in oil. The next one here, I don't know whether you could see this, put this down for a minute, is mixed media. I taught a workshop last summer where we painted first in watercolor, and then we went in with inks, India ink, and then we went on top with colored pencils. So that's what that is. It's watercolor, ink, and colored pencils. And in some of these grass areas, I actually scratched out with the end of an aquarelle brush. So you get paint on, so that on your paper, so that it's wet but not soppy wet, just kind of glistening. And then you run the end of your brush through it, and that creates a lot of that grass. Then you can go back in and enhance it. The next painting is the love of my life. Her name is Kara, and she's a very spoiled baby that we love dearly, and we take her to the beach. Well, we haven't as much recently because of all the rain, but we take her to the beach as often as possible, and she loves it. So these are all different mediums. This is pastel, this is mixed media, this is oil, mixed media again, and then watercolor. Today I'm going to work in watercolor, and I'll start out with some drawing. And Janine? Yes. I don't know whether there's any way you could get up here. Could you sit still for 20 minutes? You want my glasses? I want your glasses right where they are. I want your glasses right where. I want her there. Can you see her?
I'll be scratching my nose.
That's okay. The very hardest job is being the model, and what you have to do is you have to kind of just go inside yourself, and if you can meditate, that's helpful. It's also helpful to find something on the wall to look at, but it's much harder sitting there doing that than it is doing what I'm doing. So I'm going to take about 20 minutes to work on a drawing. I'm not very good at drawing and talking at the same time. I'll try to talk and tell you what I'm doing, but if I stop in the middle of a sentence, you know it's because my brain has gone to the other side, and I'm not capable of talking. But I will try. I think that the basis of almost all art forms is drawing, no matter what media you work in. Even I have a sculpture out in the other gallery. All of that is enhanced by drawing. It just is so helpful. So I really stress drawing no matter what you will do. And Janine, let's see, maybe you could find something to look at. Yeah, that's nice. Good. Okay. And she can't smile. She has a beautiful smile, but you can't smile for 20 minutes. Smiles last seconds. And, yeah. Okay. You all right? I'm going to start the timer. You might notice the position that I'm holding my pencil. When you hold your pencil like this, you get very, very tight. I'm holding the pencil like I lay it across my palm and then work with it this way. That keeps your drawing more loose.
You had a sewing boss?
Yeah, you tell the class in case you can't see the painting on his back.
Janine, the model, is one of my students in Brookings. And
Can you see it? Have you drawn her before?
Never have.
Sarah, what kind of apparatus or board are you using?
This is an inexpensive piece of watercolor paper. When I took the Don Andrews workshop, where we worked from the model, he had us buy some inexpensive practice paper. And I think this is a Canson watercolor paper that probably costs about 25 cents. Most watercolor paper costs from $3 a sheet all the way up to $13 a sheet. You know, it can be very, very expensive.
Can you see it? No, I can't see it on here. It looks like a blank screen.
What's the weight of the paper you're using? 90 or
90 or something like that. It's not expensive paper because this is, the biggest problem is if you do something wonderful on an inexpensive paper, then you have to redraw it and do it. But just for demonstration purposes or for practice purposes. And I do erase. I've had instructors that say you can't use an eraser, and I don't think you need to erase everything. A lot of times I just restate lines. If the line is wrong, I just make it over again. And people with lines in their face like I have, you put those lines in, but you don't exaggerate them because you maybe put them in and then soften them.
Jay, go get me one.
Sarah will have to make a makeup biscuit today.
I encourage people to practice drawing hands. People have a mindset that hands are hard to draw, and I've even known people that always put the model's hand in their pockets. I love those red earrings and those red sunglasses. Great.
What kind of pencil are you using?
Just a number 2 office pencil. If the drawing were soft pencils, I like 4Bs and 6Bs, but I'm a real scribbler and this is supposed to be a painting, so I try not to put too much graphite on the paper, but I always do. Just can't seem to help myself. I used to, when I was working, I used to always erase all the pencil lines, and I kind of don't do that anymore. I think sometimes it's nice for the viewer to see the process that you work. The 200 pound is a little heavier than the 140, and I like it. I like 300 pound paper a lot, but it can be pretty expensive.
Is it a cold press or hot?
I like cold pressed paper, yes. Okay. That was just about 10 minutes, Janine. You can rest.
You didn't think I could sit still for that long?
Did you?
No.
Okay. You can. I think that's enough. I didn't take the full 20 minutes because that's okay. I got enough here of what I want to do. I don't have a real good likeness, but a lot of times what I do, I work with a group in Gold Beach, and we hire models. And oftentimes I will work on the inexpensive paper and do the drawing and then do the painting and then take it home and copy it onto better quality paper and repaint it. So I do that a lot. All of the work that I'm going to show you today, did you lose your seat?
No, my seat's still back there, but it's easier.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All of the work that I'm going to show you today has been done from live models. And not everything that I'm going to show you is a finished painting. Some of them are just kind of quick studies. So we'll get started. I did remember that last year when I was here, I did this background wash for this painting.
Let's see.
These were two little Indian girls from a photograph that Marilyn Ard took. And last year, all I did for the demonstration was run this background wash. And the way I did that was to put a bullseye of yellow and then the red and then a little opera in here and the blue in here, and then I shook it and moved it around. The next step on this is I've gone in and put a lot of black ink in here. The black ink is waterproof, so I can go back in again with paint, and this won't run. So this is kind of something that you saw part of last year, and I decided to bring it back and show you, which way it went. This is one that I'm going to be working on today. This is a young woman from Gold Beach that posed for us, and I say I do my drawings and I do my paintings, and thank you, and then I go home and rework them, and that's the case for this. As you can see, I do a lot of scribbling when I'm drawing. And a lot of times I don't want that much graphite on the watercolor paper. So I will make a tracing on tracing paper, and you can transfer this onto your watercolor paper by just putting graphite on the back, fastening it down. I fasten it at the top with tape, and so that I can flip it up like this and check my progress to be sure that I didn't miss any lines. Another way to transfer work is with commercially made graphite paper, or you can make your own graphite paper. But there's a full explanation for that that would take too long today to tell you about. I'm going to run my first wash on this painting of Janine and show you how I start, and then we'll go on to something else. I have my palette here, which is very dirty, but I think that I can always use all that good paint there, so I just keep it on there. You know what I'm gonna need is somebody who goes to the back door to get me some water. Thank you. I think I should probably put something under me.
Don't worry about the floor.
Are you sure? Because I'm gonna run. Okay. I use the biggest brush that I can use for the job. What I'm going to try to do in this first wash, thank you, girl. I'm going to try to cover the whole watercolor paper with various washes that then will dry, and then you can go back and paint into it again. And since we don't have time to do all the steps, I have one already that's already dry. But I'll start on this one. And I'm going to talk to you a lot about color in just a minute. This color that I'm putting on her face is Opera. It's by Holbein. I like Daniel Smith paints. I like Winsor Newton paints, but different colors of paints will be different in different brands.
How do you decide which color to put on?
I didn't hear you.
Well, how do you decide which color to put?
I'm trying to get skin tones in her skin. For her hair, I'm putting a base of blue. This will all be, this is just like a one layer of paint. And you'll see how this goes when I get to the next layer. But I'll tell you all the colors that I use. I need to move fast on this because I want the colors to mix on the paper. The one thing that you want to be careful on this kind of painting is what you put next to a color. If I'm going to put some reds in this background, and they will be okay with the blues that I have. And I'm just trying to get a good base of color on this. The center of interest is always going to be where you have the most contrast. So I want her face to be the center of interest. So what I've done here is I've put a darker value right next to her face, and then the lighter value on her face. So that will bring your eye right there. do know that the left brain talks and the right brain is an artist. So,
She who uses both is a teacher.
well, everybody goes back and forth. You know, you use your intuitive brain, and you use also your analytical brain. But painting is a very non-verbal thing.
Stay on the right side.
What weight paper are you using?
Cheap. I'll use a better weight paper, and I'll tell you what it is. This is just an inexpensive paper for demonstration purposes. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what I've done. I've put her skin tones in her face and in her hand. I've painted in the whole background. By painting the whole thing at once ties the painting together, makes it work as a whole. So that's my purpose in doing this. All of this, to finish this painting, all of this would be repainted. But this is a base, and see, I've got this, and even it's, you know, we could do some fun things, you know, in her hair. Like, see, it's too wet. It's too wet. I mean, it's too dry. Backwards, too dry. Let's see if I can do some fun things with hair. This is okay. Talk to you a little bit about my palette. I try to use as many non-staining colors as possible. This color, I've got a little map here because I forget. This color here in this corner is Aurelian, which is a very, very transparent yellow. Next to that is New Gamboge, which is a very good color, makes good skin tones. This is cadmium yellow, which is a more dense color. You don't want to use it unless it's not as transparent. Raw sienna is next to this. Raw sienna is a very transparent color. Burnt sienna next to that. Then I have quinacridone gold, and I love that color. These colors seem very similar. I'll probably take them off of my palette soon because they're so near the same. And I do change my palette occasionally. And of course, every time you take a class and have a new teacher, they send you out to buy all new paints for different colors. Okay, we were at the quinacridone gold, quinacridone burnt, quinacridone burnt orange, quinacridone burnt scarlet here in the corner, brown madder and permanent brown, quinacridone rose, and this is opera, which is a very fuchsia pink color, mixes very well with other colors. This color is alizarin crimson, and alizarin crimson is one of my very favorite colors, but I don't like this brand of alizarin crimson. You can buy Daniel Smith alizarin crimson or Winsor Newton alizarin crimson. This happens to be American Journey, which is a less expensive paint put out by Cheap Joe's that I have been using recently. And I like it pretty well, but there's some colors that I just don't care for, and this is one of them. So I'll go back to my other brands. This color is Orange Vermilion, quinacridone coral. This one is called Andrews Turquoise, and it's a real fun color. Manganese blue, it's not the manganese blue that we used to get. It's a different manganese blue because the other was so harmful to your health that they stopped making it. This is cerulean blue, and this is not the cerulean blue that I'm used to looking at. This again is the American Journey, and it's a very different color, but it's a nice color, and so I kind of like it. This is ultramarine blue. Cobalt blue is a very true blue. Viridian green, sap green, Hooker's green, sap green, excuse me, and green gold. Many artists mix all their own greens. I go back and forth from mixing all my greens or using greens from the two.
Is that manganese better like the old manganese? Is it as
Not as bad, not as bad, but it's not the same color that we used to get. Okay, wanted to talk to you a little bit about what is flesh color. There is no magic formula for flesh. What I have here and I'm going to go through it with you. If anybody wants them, they can write them down if they don't. But there's so many different combinations that you can use in color to get flesh tones. This is cerulean blue, lemon yellow, and opera. This is Hooker's green, raw sienna, and opera. Cerulean blue, opera, raw sienna. This is ultramarine blue, cobalt violet, cadmium yellow, and alizarin crimson. This is Aurelian and opera, raw sienna, cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, cadmium red, cerulean blue, lemon yellow, and alizarin crimson, cerulean blue, raw sienna, and opera. Manganese blue, quinacridone rose, and cadmium red. Cobalt violet, manganese blue, lemon yellow, and opera. Manganese blue, opera, raw sienna, manganese blue, lemon yellow, and opera. And the truth of the matter is, if I were to do this demonstration all over again with the same colors, I would come out with different flesh tones because it's not an exact science. It's not an, if you have a little more or a little less of one color, it's going to be something different. So I can't tell you that you mix flesh tones by mixing vermilion and new gamboge, but you can. And that's not the only combination. So you've got all of it. And the way these were painted, and of course if you can look at them like this, if you can put a little viewfinder around them, you can see the colors. Sometimes these border edges are distracting, but you can really see that any one of these could be a flesh color. Anybody questions?
What color's opera?
Opera is almost it's a really electric pink. It's a real fun color and it mixes very well with other colors.
Which one?
Opera is right here. Very pink.
With blue.
They used to say opera was fugitive.
Well, I've heard that too, but Don Andrews uses opera, and he's nationally known, and so, yeah.
What's brand?
I think that it's Holbein.
Hold on.
I think so.
Yes,
You got the opera?
Yeah,
It's
we
right
did.
here, that real pink.
It's there for looking at later and for us brand new people. Thank you.
You say those are mixed colors, not glazes?
They're glazed. Well, what they are, the way I painted them was I put one color on top of another color on top of another color while they were all wet. So I didn't mix them on the palette, I mixed them on the paper.
Semi-glazed.
But in glazing, usually they say you let it dry in between for glazing. So this is more mixing on the paper than glazing. Okay, here is a first wash that's dry. The one of Janine will not be dry soon enough for me to work on it, particularly with all the rain outside. Moving from almost a desert climate to a rainy climate has made a difference in my watercolor painting. But I did this first wash the same way I did that one, and now I'm going to work some more on it. this is kind of tedious work and slow, and you will get bored with it pretty quick. So I'll work on it for a little while, and then we'll do something else. But I have my photograph here, and I'll work on this first wash. I rarely ever use earth tones for shadows and faces. I tend more to use purples or greens rather than the earth tones. Sometimes the browns, you get the browns in there and it gets real dead looking. So I try to do that. So I'm gonna work with her, I think, with some kind of purple colors. And
You need the light?
no, I don't need light. You know what I need is some tissue. Somebody could give me. Yeah, toilet tissue is perfect. It's a wonderful painting tool.
Yeah.
If I want to soften these lines, these edges, I don't want hard edges, I just go right in with water. Remember with watercolor that the color dries lighter. So if you have your color just perfect value, then put more pigment on because it's going to dry lighter. Is usually in shadow, lights coming from the top. Look around the room, you'll see everybody's upper lip is darker than the lower lip because of the shadow shades. I have students who are taking classes for credit, and I bribe them to come down here. I told them I would give them extra credit.
I'm not taking it for credit.
You get extra credit. Yeah. This young woman's name was Charlotte. I can work slow or I can work fast. I think standing up here I try to work fast, but I can also, I tend to work on paintings sometimes for many weeks, and I set them up at home and put them someplace where I can see them out of the corner of my eye. Different artists work in different ways. You know, some people start and finish a painting, and that's it. Other people like me work slowly and painfully over a long period of time.
Is it hard to soften lines after it's dried?
It's very hard. You can. But it's much easier. See what I'm doing is I'm putting this shadow shape along her back, and then I just go right in on this side with just water and soften it right now. But this will be this kind of a painting. Usually I do in many layers, and I refine it more and more as I go along, and oftentimes I overdo it. More often than not, I overdo it because I, just get so picky about the way it's going to look.
I noticed that you have like lines drawn on the photo, and you
Yes.
have kind of like
Okay.
a focal point.
Yeah. No. What this is you know how some people grid in squares?
Yeah.
Okay, I drew this model from life first. I photographed her, I came home and I redrew her so I'd have it for this group. And in order to get her placed right on the paper, I put an X down the middle. It's easier for me, for some reason, to work with an X than it is with squares. I can't function with all those little squares that people who grid do. But I can get it placed on the paper where I want it by putting an X across it.
Okay, so then you divide those in half.
It depends on how detailed I want it to be. I wanted this to be pretty accurate because I was going to be doing it for this demonstration. So I have an X here, and then I have a center line here and a center line here. I didn't need any more lines down here. The fewer lines for me, the better, because I don't think in terms of those little boxes. They don't work for me.
You take out of the box.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Sorry, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. There's a real glow on her skin back here. And then it gets kind of blue in this shadow area under here. I used to teach at Lassen College in Susanville in California, and I taught there for about 9 years. And I had a student there named Maxine who recently moved to Crescent City. So say hello to Maxine. She's brand new here, and I was very pleased to have her here. I'll show you. I can pass this around. These are photographs of the model, and then also I have this new digital camera, and I can work with my camera on the computer and I can crop things. So I cropped this photograph like this, and I painted these, and I'll show you what they look like, but I will pass this around so you can kind of see what I'm working from. But I was very pleased with these. They become very abstract.
See?
They can really help you focus in on.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but the
Yeah. Well, see, this hand is right here, and this is right here with just her chin, her mouth, and I was really very pleased with these. I was going to talk to you a little bit about two different ways of mixing paint and how they look. And you can see that I've done this demonstration before. In this square here, I used raw sienna and a small amount of alizarin crimson, and I painted it flat and let it dry. But I mixed the paint on the palette. On this one, I used cerulean blue, cobalt violet, sap green, manganese blue, a combination of raw sienna and alizarin crimson. And this color, to me, is so much more alive than this color here. Can you see the difference in those colors? Much, much more alive color. I don't know whether it'll dry, but I'll try it again for you.
Sarah, do you normally paint vertically like that, or is this just with a demo?
Both. Both. I like to work vertically, and I always encourage people to work vertically. For one thing, you can back up from your work. For another thing, you can get your whole arm in it. Another thing that happens is when you have something laying on a table and you're sitting in front of it, it's distorted. And you'll think that your drawing is perfect, and then you put it up like this. It's not working. So it's really, really good to unless you're okay with runs. Unless it's okay.
Nobody's home.
Okay, this is a mixture that I mixed on in the palette of raw sienna and alizarin crimson, and I'm painting it on. Now I'm going to make one of these mixtures, and maybe I'll start with Hooker's Green. See, I need a bigger brush.
Is that it, what'd you say?
This is Hooker's Green,
Oh, by itself.
but nothing else. Hooker's Green. And on top of that, I'm going to put some manganese blue, I think. And on top of that, I'm going to put some raw sienna. And then my favorite, I'm going to put some opera. are flesh colors. We come up with flesh color here and flesh color here. The color where we're mixing the greens and the blues and the raw siennas and the ochre is a more alive color. Can you see the difference? Big difference. Okay. All the time I have been painting and all the time I've been teaching, I always tell people never use black. Because black watercolor paint can make it look like you have a hole in your paper. But there's sometimes when we need blacks, and so we mix them. When I went to Don Andrews' workshop in Medford last year, he had black on his palette. And I approached him about this, and I said, you know, I've been told never, never, never use black. And he said, I never mix black with anything else. But when I need black, I use black. Well, I still am so ingrained that you don't use black that I don't. So what I do is I take my 3 darkest colors, and they can be ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and viridian. They can be phthalo blue, phthalo green, and a carmine. Dark, dark colors, mix them together, and get a black. Sometimes you have to layer. But you can get a really alive black that isn't black, and it won't die on your paper.
Camera.
What is that? Did you mix that mixture? This mixture is my 3 darkest colors, and I mixed it up, and I don't remember which they were. But I make black with just my darkest colors. And if you have phthalo colors, they're really staining and really dark. But I think you can get away with using them if you're pretty much finished painting and you're not going to paint back into it. So that's my story on black. Anybody questions? I usually keep some black mixed up in a little thing.
What did you use on that picture there?
That mixture, from the black woman, the young woman. Yeah, that's what I use. I don't even have any black watercolor paint. I don't know what it looks like when I bend over like that. Yeah, think of that. In Medford.
Don Andrews.
Don Andrews. We worked from the model. We had, I think there were about 18 people there, and we had a big hall, and there was a model at this end and a model at that end, and we worked every day from the models, and it was just so wonderful. One of the things he wanted us to do was to tie the shadow shapes together. So we worked. These are very, very quick charcoal drawings of models, probably 1 or 2 or 3 minutes. But all you're looking for is the shadow shapes. And he said that you need to tie the shadows together. Is it better on this? Yeah. Okay. This is a reclining nude with just the shadow shapes. This is a standing nude with just the shadow shapes. This says 4 minutes, shadow patterns. I've tried to tie all the shadow patterns together. This is a shadow pattern through here on a figure where I've tried to tie all the shadow shapes together. So you can see how, even with just the darks, you've got the figure. You can see it there. Yes?
When you say tie the shadow shapes together, does that mean just sort of have them work together? Or
Yes.
does that mean had them actually lines going so that there's nothing separate.
Are they connected?
Connected is what I mean by tied together. But where you know, you might start here on this the shadow on her body and let it run across her leg and come, so connecting them. Anybody else questions on this? I call this my gallery presentation because I have a number of paintings to show you. These are all from live models. These are small enough that I can pass them around. I'll show them, I'll show them to you first, and then you can pass them around. These are not necessarily finished paintings. This model's name was Megan, and this model's name was Kathy. But you can see kind of how I work, and I have a whole, this is a young woman from Gold Beach, where we worked from the model in Gold Beach. And many of the models like to dress in kind of fun costumes. During the summer we had many, many nude models, but now that the weather's turned cold, we don't have as many nude models. I thought this was kind of fun because she had real dark hair. And I don't consider this a finished painting. This I did in a workshop, and the model posed for, you know, probably 3 hours, 2 or 3 hours, but it's at 20-minute intervals with like 10-minute breaks in between. So it probably ends up being about a 2-hour painting, most of these. This again was from the Don Andrews workshop, and I liked all of the really warm colors I have on this. This again isn't a finished painting, but you notice here with the negative space painting around the hand, pops the hand out. This is also from the Don Andrews workshop. We had one male model. We had Hannah. This is not a male model, obviously. Hannah was just beautiful. She was from Germany, and really a marvelous model. And then Hannah's husband came. So we had Hannah and Hannah's husband for models. And he had gorgeous eyes. People ask why you paint from the nude, and there are a number of different answers to that. Number one being that the human body is beautiful. There's a difference between fine art nudes and pornography. But one thing that I often explain to people is, if I ask you to look at your own hand and draw it, and then I say, okay, look at your own hand and draw it, the more you know about what's underneath, the easier it is for you to do the figure. When I was in college, I had to learn all the muscles and the bones of the skeleton. I learned them long enough to take a test and make a good grade on it. After that, I immediately forgot, because it wasn't important to me to know all those names. What is important is to know where those bones and muscles are and how they work. In my drawing classes, where we begin with some portraits, we look at the skeleton, because if you know what's underneath, it's helpful. So that's one reason to paint from the nude, is so that you understand the clothes figure, if you understand what's underneath. And also, as I say, I think the human body is beautiful. This is, remember I told you that I go and I do a painting, and then I go home and redraw it and redo it. This is a painting that I did the last week, or last Thursday, and I will probably redraw this and redo it, but this was just a first painting, a direct painting from the model. a young woman from Gold Beach. Her name is Abby. And I did go home and work on this some more after painting from her for about 2.5 hours. Did you like the background? Yeah, it's hard to get the paint that dense and not have it dye on you. Another thing that I find I do sometimes is scrub paintings out. I've even been known to put them in the bathtub. If there was something in this that I didn't want, I could put this all underwater in the bathtub, take a sponge and sponge out a certain area and not disturb the rest of the paint. It's kind of a scary thing to do, but it works.
Did you scrape out part of her hair?
Yes. The hair was the same technique I was trying to get on Janine.
And the earring?
No, the earring actually was masking fluid. I don't like to use masking fluid. It always makes such hard lines. But there's some things, but see, I started this painting with one of those really, really wet washes like I demonstrated here today. And you can't keep those shine on those earrings.
Yeah.
So I have some masking fluid. Let me see if I can find it here for you. Yeah, well, it has different names. It's called Misket, Frisket, Mascoid, different manufacturers. This is one that I got from Cheap Joe's, and the nice thing about this one is that it has a little needle and a tiny little tip so that you can make very fine lines, like for those earrings.
And you can refill it too.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So it's got that little needle on it. But I don't like to use masking fluid unless there just is no other way. And there's no other way with those earrings. Here's another one where I use masking fluid on the earrings. This young woman's name was Camilla. Let's see if I can.
And did you scrape the hair?
I washed the hair out. I had painted the hair probably as dense on this side as I did on that, and so I often use a squirt bottle. It's another tool that I have where I just squirt it and let the paint run. So that's how that was done. Here's another one of Camilla. If I want to gray a color in a shadow area, I'll take the opposite color on the color wheel. So I've got blue here, and if I want to gray it down in this area here, I'll put orange in there. Orange and blue are opposite on the color wheel. See, I'm not minding that that's running down into that blue, because that may create something that's real interesting. into that, but I like the look of it, so that I'm just going to leave it there. A lot of times you'll see something happen on your paper, and if you like the way it looks, leave it there. Uh-huh. Right. Yeah, the reflected light is usually on the shadow side. You'll have, we have light coming from everywhere here, but if you have reflected light, and it'll have a little glow on this side. They have little scrubber brushes, or you can use bristle brushes. There's a number of ways of doing it. I see some of my students from Brookings back here. Those kids that are going to get extra credit. Glad you're here. Okay, anybody else have questions? Anybody have questions? Okay, I think my demonstration is complete.